afternoon, everyone. Hello, Mark. How are you?
I am doing fantastic. How are you?
I'm so happy I have you here. I'm happy we have the listeners here. And I think it's just a great day to have an awesome podcast episode.
Absolutely. I'm in. Let's do it.
Awesome. Mark is a seven-figure business and mindset coach. But I think I will let him tell us more about who he is, his experience, background, past, present, future. Mark, please.
Thank you for inviting me. It's a pleasure to be here. I am a business and mindset coach and I specialize in sales and marketing. My background, funnily, I have a bachelor's in computer science and mathematics and a master's in IT. And my whole career has been in high-tech consulting. But this version of me that you see today isn't the version that already always existed because I grew up book smart without people skills. And I never really understood the value of it until I graduated college and I went into consulting and I fell flat on my face. All my life, I had paid so much attention to knowledge and learning and subject matter, I ignored the human communication aspect of it. And when you go into consulting, you realize it's 50% subject matter expert, 50% communication sales, that type of skill. So that's when I realized that I had a gaping hole in my resume, that I'd lived my life a certain way and it wasn't going to pan out. And I was very hurt, but I was also very young. So I got angry and I was like, this is it. I quit my job. I went into sales. For 5 years, I worked at many different sales organizations with the goal to learn everything I could learn about sales. Looking back at it, that's obviously stupid. I was young, but that's the energy that I had then. So I learned a lot. And I think what was also very important for me was there's always this stereotype around sales, right? The sleazy salesman, they're always trying to pull something over you. This is what you see on TV and this is what you see on media. And that's a preconceived notion I had when I went into sales. And I realized that's not it. There's ethical sales, there is authentic sales, and that's what I wanted to learn. I learned everything I could. After 5 years, I went into consulting. I did really good. We were living in Manhattan. But everybody, my friends, my family, my coworkers noticed this new version of me. Just couldn't believe it. And they asked me, like, what was I doing personally and how else I was killing it professionally? Because at the time, I was signing up multi-million-dollar software contracts when my coworkers couldn't even get in front of the client. So it started as a side business where I was teaching my friends and coworkers all these sales and marketing techniques and how to do it authentically. And then at some point in life, it's just one of those things. I woke up and I realized this is my calling in life because there's so many people out there who have a good product, who have a good message, who have a good service. But whether it be the preconceived notions about sales or marketing or whether it be the lack of education, they can move to the next step. So that's when I became a full-time coach.
That is awesome. So it means that you don't have to be born with these skills, right? It means that even if you are maybe an introvert, you can train yourself into this sales skills. With that being said, let me just start by asking from your experience, because you also into the consulting, you were into the sales industry, and now you are into coaching. What are the most common and biggest areas of improvement that you find in entrepreneurs, in maybe consultants or coaches? And I put them all together because many times you have to be all of this to be able to grow your coaching business.
Yeah. No, that's a really good question. And I'm glad we're starting here because as coaches, consultants, professionals who are looking to take our business to the next level, sometimes all we care about is tactic, technique, strategy, all these things. And trust me, these are all important. But what is more important is your mindset. And when I start working with my students, that's the first area that I want to work on. Because somehow deep within us, everyone knows what they need to do, right? I mean, a few years ago, I found myself a little bit overweight, right? I knew what I needed to do logically. I knew I needed to eat right and exercise and move around and not eat as many cookies, eat more vegetables. And even though the tactics were very simple, I just couldn't do it. And there are millions of people around the world suffering with the same problem. If you're stuck at a job and you hate your job, you're stuck in a relationship and you're not happy, we all logically know what's the tactic that we need to take to move out of it. What's the strategy? What's the next step? But somehow we feel trapped and we're not able to do it. And why is that? It's because there's something happening in between these 2 years, something happening in our brain that's even though we know what to do, we can't do it. And when I start working with entrepreneurs, that's where I want to start. There are really complicated things like imposter syndrome, money mindset issues, right? Sometimes entrepreneurs have really not embodied the person that they want to be. They want to do this. They're learning the tactics, but they're just unable to carry it out. And that's where my heart and passion really lies in human behavior and what I call is identity shifting, which is that this is who you are today. You want to become successful in business and make a lot of money, and that's wonderful. But who do you need to become tomorrow so that you can accomplish those things. And honestly, Maria, that's where the magic lies, that we start learning about ourselves, our own mind, which we usually don't pay attention to, which is really a product of what? How we are raised, what our belief system is, where we were raised, right? Our friends, our family, our environment has so many impact on us. So how do we understand who we are and how we can change so that we could become a better entrepreneur, business person in the future?
And my next question was, how do we do that? But just before getting into the how, I know you mentioned entrepreneurs. So just to make it clear, what do you mean by entrepreneurs and who are you working with exactly?
For me, the definition of an entrepreneur is very broad. It's basically anybody who's looking to get out of their 9 to 5 job and have a full-time business in whatever capacity. You could be a coach, you could be a consultant. Those are two primary areas where I help students with. And then the third area is you could be someone who's looking to get their own startup going. I have a tech background, so I also help students with that. So that's how I pretty much the umbrella of entrepreneurs that I work with. And that's how I define it.
Got it. Then tell us the how of everything you talked about, straight into it. The big, how do we make that happen?
Yeah. So obviously, it's not a simple one Twitter sentence transformation, right? It's obviously very complicated. But
too bad. That's exactly what I expected. At least this episode would be done this fast.
all the problems of the world are solved. Everybody's done. One Twitter statement, we're done. But I'll tell you what, I'll help you understand something that I don't think many people know about. It's an interesting fact. Studies have shown that 80% of our thoughts are carried over from day to day. That means in my entire day today, all the thoughts that I have, 80% of them were from yesterday. So on any given day, you're really only having 20% new thoughts. So what does that tell us about how we should think of ourselves on a day-to-day basis? Are you someone who's beating yourself up every single day for whatever reason? What are the thoughts that you are living with on a day-to-day basis? So the very first thing that I try to work with my students is, what do they believe and why do they believe it? And dispel certain myths. Most of us were raised in an education system where at a very young age, we are told you're smart and you're not smart. You're in a gifted class and you're not, right? And I feel that it's ingrained within us to have this sense of we're not good enough. And it doesn't go away when you become an adult. It just gets worse and worse. Because guess what? The more you go through life, the more experiences you have, hey, more chances of getting rejection. And it's this fear of rejection and the fear of I'm not good enough that combines and manifests into a person who just doesn't believe in themselves. That's where my starting point is. I want to know where my students' background is, where are they coming from, what they believe, why they believe, and how we can get past it. And this is step 1 of 100, right? But without knowing the past and the present, we will never be able to understand what our future could be.
Well, Mark, this is a very good starting point. And let's just say that I'm thinking it's definitely worth it to focus on this step 1. What do we call it? We call it imposter syndrome. That feeling where we feel like we're not good enough, we don't belong. And I've been talking with lots of coaches who are just getting started, coaches with 10 plus years of experience. And I have to tell you, this imposter syndrome is everywhere. It doesn't really matter whether you're just getting started or not. It's there because even for a coach with a lot of experience, they always compare themselves with the next level and next and even higher. And this whole sort of comparison, in the end, I've noticed that is what really makes the imposter syndrome aggravate or become even worse. This idea of comparison, right? When I think the reality is different.
Absolutely. And this is like, you can get me like getting like all warmed up when you talk about this thing, because this is my passion, right? Nothing bothers me more when I see an amazing person with so much potential, like a diamond in the rough. But they're covered in dust and they're covered in dirt because they have allowed all these outside influences to make them feel like they're a nobody and they need to hide under something. I've talked to coaches who are making multi-million dollars a year, and somehow they feel like they just got lucky. That's an imposter syndrome. They have been doing it for 10 years. They're making multi-million dollars a year, but somehow there's always a little voice in the back of their mind that makes them think that they just got lucky, that it can just go away tomorrow. That it wasn't their hard work or education or experience. It wasn't them serving their clients that got them there. It was just luck. And it's voices like this that makes us scared. It's voices like this that makes us feel like, can I just lose everything tomorrow? Because even though you have clients and even though you have a business and even though you're making, in this example, multi-million dollars a year, You have not become the person who you need to be today to be happy and sustainable and confident. That's what it all really comes down to.
But I'm just wondering, how do we become that person that is okay with who they are and they can just let themselves perform without being in their own way?
I'll give you 2 tips. The first tip I'm going to do with an exercise, right? I'm going to put you on the spot for it. So if I told you, hey, Maria, what are some mistakes you have made this year? You probably, if you're like most people, you will be like, you know what? I meant to do this. I made this New Year resolution. I didn't go through with this. I was supposed to do this. I made this mistake yesterday. I burnt my food yesterday. I didn't walk my dog yesterday. You will have a laundry list of things that you did wrong. But if I caught you in the moment and I asked, hey, what are 3 good things you did this month? Most people freeze. And there are 2 reasons for it. Number 1, we dwell way too much on our failures. And we don't give ourselves credit for the things we do. I messed this up. I made this wrong. I should have done this. I should have done that. And we ignore all the good things we're doing. And if you are someone who actually remembers some of the good things, when I ask this question to my students, because I actually ask them, I put them on the spot and I ask them to help demonstrate a point. When I ask this question to students, some students, they're like, well, I did do this good thing, but is it good enough to even mention? Is this like good enough? Is it something worth mentioning? So number 1, you don't remember the good things. Number 2, you do remember the good things, but you're like, is it good enough? So what does that tell about you? You remember all your mistakes. You remember all the bad things you did, but you don't give yourself credit for the good things because you're beating yourself up way too much. So this is also the beginning, the foundations of understanding and becoming that new person. We have to be able to forgive ourselves, appreciate ourselves, and remind ourselves constantly the things that we are doing good, at least as often as we're beating ourselves up for the mistakes we're making.
Definitely. But let me put you on the spotlight. Tell me 2 good things that you did in the last month.
In the last month, I can tell you 3 good things I did today. I'm just kidding.
Tell them. Come on.
So I love all my students, but it's something about me. I love breakthroughs. I onboarded a new student, not even been a month, who just had been beaten up. She's a single mother with 2 kids and had a small business, had joined coaching program after coaching program, invested a lot of money, got herself into debt, and thought that the real problem was that she couldn't overcome sales objections. I get to the end of the call and the person says, hey, do you want to buy? They're like, no, I don't want to buy. Okay, how do I overcome them? They were looking for a tactic, right? And I started speaking with her and I did a couple of sessions with her. And towards the end of it, Maria, it warms my heart even when I say it. She starts crying because she's in so much pain and she's in so much despair. As a person who's in the coaching business, entrepreneurship, you understand how hard entrepreneurship is, how much it takes away from us. There's a saying that an entrepreneur will work 80 hours a week just to avoid working 40 hours a week at a job, right? So as a single mother who's trying to put food on the table, she's constantly fighting these demons within her that's basically telling her, should you just go back to a job so you can provide for your kids, or should you just give it another shot? And I'm just so lucky that the universe put us together. A couple of conversations with me was at least able to give her hope, was at least able to make her look at things a little differently. Because sometimes when we're stuck in a problem, we're just looking at it the same way. That made my month. Like the fact that I have a little something to offer to somebody that could give them hope, that could change things for them. What else can I ask for?
That is impressive, Mark. And I feel like it's moments like this that we should really focus on and understand the value that we are putting out there. It's easy to always, as coaches, look at the next big thing, doubling the number of clients, doubling our price, and all of this sort of metrics related, which are obviously important. But in the end, I guess we also take so much more out of it just by being able to support and help others. And I think in the end, we should always reconnect with our whys. And that is for many of us to help, to support, to add value, to just be there for somebody. But let me ask you, because you mentioned something about sales skills, right? You mentioned that was one of her obstacles. Could you please, for our listeners, make the distinction between the terms? What are sales skills? What are marketing tactics? And why do you believe that focusing on sales skills is more important than focusing on marketing tactics?
Amazing question. You have to understand, marketing is seasonal. What do I mean by that? You are running ads on Facebook. That's a form of marketing. Facebook algorithm can change tomorrow. Now you have to change your marketing, right? YouTube ads you're running, that's seasonal. YouTube can tomorrow say you can only run ads when this and this happens. It changes. Now, don't get me wrong. Marketing is absolutely crucial. You can't run a business without having proper marketing, because that's basically getting the word out. But in today's world, where if you go online, there are 1,000 coaches in your area who's offering the same service, right? Just getting the word out doesn't mean much. And the only way to stand out and the only way to really make an impact and take your business to the next level is to understand the power of sales, is to understand the power of sales conversations. Because when you are working at a high level, when you're selling at a high level, you are not thinking about tricks and tips and bamboozles and all these things you can do to just steal money from someone, right? That's the perception people have of sales. Oh, like a used car dealership where I walked in and they just put me in a dead lemon cart and then took all my money. Oh, that's the salesman. But no, in reality, high level sales, consistent sales, good sales is about understanding human behavior and building a relationship in a way so that the person is able to understand how you can help them and why they need you. And this is universal. Because I learned this skill and because I teach this skill to my students, they are able to bring that version of themselves everywhere. You can talk to someone for 3 seconds and you either like them or you don't like them, or you want to hear from them or you don't want to hear from them. We all have internal sales barriers built up just through life. And we are very good at understanding who's an imposter versus who's someone who's really trying to help. So understanding sales skills, understanding human behavior, valuing human relationships, right? This is the foundation, is the bedrock on which I help my students build their sales skills. And you brought up a very good point just before this question, which is we want to bring value to the people, right? And that's what makes us happy. That's exactly it. For most people who are doing it, in my humble opinion, wrong, their prospects are numbers on an Excel sheet, right? This person didn't buy, this person didn't buy. They don't know anything about that person, right? Why would they buy from you? If your service is just as equal as someone else's service, what's the differentiator? There is no unique differentiator for that individual, for that customer, for that prospect. So by better positioning yourself, making yourself unique, but above all, giving them the top A+ customer service, which is founded obviously on strategies and mental frameworks and all these skills that I teach in my program, you have created an experience for that customer that they will never forget. And that's why I tell all my students that we have to be grateful when someone gives a moment of their time to us, whether on a phone call, whether on a Zoom call. We have to be grateful and we have to take that seriously, because we are nothing but a moment in their lives. And we have a moment to impress them. We have a moment to help them understand that we are our best self. And when I review sales calls, my students come and they show me their previous sales call. It's kind of like, okay, Hadi, what are you looking for? Oh, good. Yeah, they have an agenda. They already have an agenda. I want to sell you on this thing. They have no interest in understanding this person, right? And they don't make the sale. So this is a very high level overview umbrella upon which everything else builds. If you understand this concept, if you truly embody yourself and get this concept, everything else to come is going to work out. Because it starts with the mindset, then the tactics and strategies come. I don't know if that answered your question. Let me know.
Yeah, definitely it does. What I wanted to ask is, because you mentioned a lot this idea that human connection is very important when it comes to your sales skills and differentiating yourself. How do you keep that human connection when you scale, when you have lots of clients, lots of people being attracted by your brand?
Very good question. I'm glad you asked it. And here's why. Because when you become that person that I'm describing, who cares about human beings, who understands their value, understands their prospects, right? Their needs, their desires, who they want to be. When you are this person who cares and has these fundamentals down, it comes out in your messaging. It comes out in your copy, whatever you're writing. It comes out in your YouTube videos. It comes out in your Instagram reels. You are not a guy sitting in front of an airplane and doing this money shot to attract clients anymore, because you understand that stuff only works so much. That's why I said you have to become a different version of yourself. You have to shift your identity in a completely different direction. And when that happens, it's seen everywhere. Because now the speech you gave, the talk you gave, the podcast you gave, in a way, is aligned to all of those things and could be called a sales pitch. The message you wrote is caring about the person. And because you have such deep understanding of your clientele, they read it and they feel like you're speaking to them. Then all these techniques of writing copy and video marketing, they are not this magical thing anymore. It becomes so simple. And that's what my students say, that when they go through the program and when they've understood the fundamentals and then they have layered on the strategies and techniques and mental frameworks and skill sets, because obviously those are important. Once they've done that, it's very easy to understand how to write an impactful copy. It's very easy to understand how to speak in a certain way or talk in a certain way or message in a certain way. So it doesn't matter then, right? For scaling purposes, whatever you're doing, right, you're marketing in a certain way. You're not scaling without marketing. So this is when your sales skills now become part of your marketing. And that's the whole beginning to the question which you asked us. Why is sales more important than marketing? Because when you sell well and when you have all the foundations, it'll automatically impact your marketing.
Got it. And it makes sense. Related to what you said previously, entrepreneurs, coaches having this sales barriers, you call them. Can you tell us more about what are the sales barriers? Give us some examples. Where are they coming from? How can you overcome them?
Yeah. So largely, there are three chunks of barriers most students face who come to me. The first barrier at the very beginning is the awkwardness of a conversation. Okay, because they are getting on the call thinking, well, I kind of want this person to sign up. They have an agenda, right? I need the money, right? and this imposter syndrome, money mindset, that's now affecting their energy and the way they talk. So they are not able to start a conversation in a good way, in a way that is natural and friendly. That's one big aspect that I notice is a problem. The second big aspect is the meat and potatoes of the conversation, the real stuff. Okay. And what I notice is that most coaches, consultants, salespeople are trying to yank the prospect from their lane, from the prospect's world into their world. Because why? They already have a preset agenda, right? The agenda is I need to sell my program. So the prospect is saying all these things, but I already have some pre-made questions that I've memorized, and I'm going to now just ask those questions, whether it fits the person or not. And what I call is yank them out of their world and bring them into the business person's world, the entrepreneur's world. But that's not what should be happening. We should be entering the conversation that the prospect is already having in their mind. When that prospect joined your phone call, when that prospect agreed to join that Zoom call, agreed to give you some time on the phone for a consultation, the prospect had a past. The prospect has thoughts. The prospect has desire, wants, needs, problems, struggles, mental and obviously business-wise, right? So we need to learn the skill sets and the techniques and also develop a version of ourselves that is empathetic and patient listener that will allow us to enter the conversation that the prospect is already having in their mind. And that's what then is the beginning of that real sales conversation. But that's not what most people do. We're so focused, gotta go. I got an appointment in half an hour. I got an appointment in 45 minutes. We're already so much in this go moment. We don't take the time to really get to know the person or any of their problems, and we just slap on a solution. My program will do this for you. And the person is like, yeah, that's great, but I don't even get to know who I am. I will think about it and I'll get back to you, right? So that's what happens. And then the third component, right? The first component was the beginning of the conversation. They feel uncomfortable, not sure how to carry it. The middle of the conversation, where they're just trying to play this tug of war with the client. And then the end of the conversation, which is the most common way people come to me and say, you know what? I just don't know how to overcome an objection. Can you tell me what to say when someone says, I don't have time, I don't have money, I don't have this, I'll think about it, I got to ask my spouse. And it's so funny to me because they think that there are some magic words that they can say to just zombify the person and be like, okay, I will buy now, right? There are no magic words. There are no magic. I mean, of course, there are techniques and strategies and all those things exist. But for a person that doesn't believe in you, that doesn't believe in your product, that doesn't believe in your service, because of the way you've been treating them all throughout the call, there are no magic words that'll help you overcome that objection. So what I teach them is to first fix the rest of the conversation. And when you fix the rest of the conversation, the objections take care of themselves. Then the strategies and techniques and all of these things come into play.
I think it's a great way to tackle all of these aspects, especially the point that you made with entering the conversation with the mindset of trying to understand what the prospect has in their mind, what they're going through. How can you help them? Another perspective of this is that I also know people who are being bothered by all of these questions. The prospects already expect this sort of approach as well, of questions being asked. and they are tired of them, unless, of course, it comes through this genuine connection. Otherwise, even this sort of approach where you try to figure out what challenges and problems they have, right now it seems like it's overused, and clients, prospects expect this, and they are already, since moment one when coaches start asking those questions, they're already like, oh my god, I have to go through a series of questions now, and so on and so forth. How do you go about that sort of
Yeah,
perspective?
great question, right? And the answer lies, a portion of the answer lies in what I said about meeting the person where they are at. It's understanding human behavior. It's understanding the person when they start speaking. Have you ever been in a conversation or at a party where, like, or at a gathering where you're there and someone just comes up and they're just going on and on and on, and you're like, dude, like, shut up. You know what I mean? Like, you're saying too much. Like, we all have those aunt or a cousin or an uncle or someone who's talking way too much. Why are they doing that? Because they don't have an understanding of when to stop. And for us, it's weird. It's like, and come on, uncle, like, you're talking way too much. They don't have that internal barrier where they don't have that mechanism to gauge when they should stop. We have all had that experience. So similarly, it's the same thing with sales, right? What you mentioned is, yes, some clients expect those things, not everybody, right? Some people actually want to talk and want to be able to describe their problem. But for those who have done it over and over again, you have to understand that person and then customize your conversation. This is the reason when I teach sales, I don't use a script. My sales program has no script. Because what happens, this is the problem that happens. What you described is the problem that happens when you have a script. You have a notebook, you have a pen, yeah, this question, maybe you ever memorized it. So you don't really take into account this person and their needs and where they are, and you're not meeting them. You're going through a predetermined set of questions. But what we need to do is read the person. This is what understanding human behavior is. Sometimes someone might show up on a sales call and is ready to buy and said, hey, what's the product? Tell me about it. Okay, have a couple of questions. I'm good to go. I'm not going to be like, so tell me about yourself, right? I'm not doing that, because I have to be able to read the person and I have to be able to know what to say, when to say. So these types of skill sets are only available to you when you understand human behavior and you know how to authentically build a relationship, and you're smart and you have the skill sets to know what to ask, when to ask. Or else our goal is to reduce friction. And we do that by understanding the person, taking that individual into account and not any preconceived notions.
Got it. Makes sense. And now let's go back to the start, in the sense of, we talked about imposter syndrome, we talked about sales barriers. I'm wondering, is imposter syndrome causing any sales barriers? And if yes, how?
Absolutely. Great question. This happens to entrepreneurs at all levels, coaches and consultants that I work with. It happens at all levels, but it happens differently to different people. Sometimes when I work with new coaches and entrepreneurs who've been in business for less than a year, they are very happy and very confident about talking about their product, because this is their creation, it's their baby. They're telling all the features and this, and then this is this thing, and this is why I have this, and oh, this is so exciting, you will love it. And then when it comes to talking about money and asking about money, the money mindset and imposter syndrome blocks them. They get super conscious, uncomfortable talking about money, asking for money. Deep down, if you know them behind the scenes, the thoughts that occupy their mind are things like, should I even be selling this? Is it even worth this amount of money? Should I just be giving away things for free? They're uncomfortable because they themselves are not the person who truly believes that their program should cost $5,000 or $8,000 or whatever the cost is, $500, whatever they're charging. That's where the imposter syndrome comes in, because you truly don't believe the version of you who are now. For entrepreneurs in their mid-level or even high-level entrepreneurs, like I mentioned before, there's a lot of thoughts about, I just got lucky. There are a lot of thoughts about, I am so busy in my business, I'm not able to keep up with everything else that is going on. Am I falling behind? Right? Or they are so successful, let's say they have a $5,000 program and they have, let's say, an 80% closing rate, which is a lot of my students have. But I have a rule in my program that once you cross a 70% close rate on the sales, the program price needs to go up. So this is one of the rules that I have. So let's say you have an 80% closing rate, you have a $5,000 program, and you are like, should I make it $6,000? Is that too much money? They're afraid to raise prices. They're afraid to raise prices because now they're like, what if I don't have business anymore? What if people go away? And there are all these things that manifest itself. And we are all energy. Like, we are speaking words right now, but we are all energy. The prospect can read that energy. They feel the discomfort. And then the imposter syndrome and the money mindset and all these issues, fear of rejection, combines and becomes this big monster that is now so difficult to take down. Does that make sense?
It does. Very interesting. And then how do you overcome imposter syndrome?
So it's not an event, it's a process. An event is something that just happens like that. A process is something that happens gradually over time. So there's a lot of things into this topic, but just to get you started, understanding your impact, let's connect a couple of the dots that we mentioned before. I talked about how we are so good at beating ourselves up and not seeing the good. So what if we actually had an exercise, a daily exercise, where we jotted down the things we did good yesterday for our clients? How does that affect your mind? Suppose you had a daily, you're collecting testimonials, you're having conversations. You're not just thinking from the perspective of a business owner who's looking for money, but you spend your entire day in the worship of knowledge and in a state of mind where you just want to serve. And now you connect that with the good that you're doing, the value that you're bringing, the results that are coming, and you're feeding your mind with a different type of thought process where you're not taking the 80% bad thoughts day to day, but the good thoughts that you have control over. How does that affect your mind in one day, in 1 week, in 1 month? It's a compound effect. But it's so much easier said than done because people fall off. Because we have been wired to beat ourselves up for 20, 30, 40, whatever years, however old you are. It's one of those things that's so easy to say and it's so difficult to do.
Got it. So something that I've learned from one of our coaches on Penn side, Jordan Hargrave, he said that he recommends other coaches before each session that they have with their clients to have this 1 minute list where they just write down anything. Let's say maybe they want some awards or accolades or reviews, testimonials, or things they've accomplished, things they felt good about. Just write those and bullet points down. And every time before each session, when you have this imposter syndrome thoughts in your mind, just read it before the session. And you will see a switch in your energy and the way you will present yourself, because suddenly you will remind yourself that you are good, you came a long way. And yeah, it's a compound effect. And it's about creating all of these habits that take you forward. It's all about effort in the end. Nothing will change without action. Okay, you told us this trick with thinking about all of the good things. Any other tricks that we can use to overcome imposter syndrome? One more.
So this is, I can't take credit for this because this was one of my students, Ryan Stewart, who's a confidence coach. He told me this thing and it really blew my mind. And he said that a lot of people think that their confidence or being confident is a skill set. We have all heard that what are the things we can do to get confident? It's a skill set. And he really blew my mind the other day when he was talking to me during one of our coaching sessions. And he said, confidence is not a skill set. Confidence is a state of mind. If confidence was a skill set, how is it that we have a couple of bad sales calls and we feel so bummed out ourselves? How is it that we wake up in the morning feeling good and somebody makes a nasty comment and we're like, oh no? How is it that we start out the month saying our business is going to make $1 million this month and there's nothing and we just beat ourselves up? If it was a skill set, then these things won't happen. And that is another big mistake that a lot of people make. They focus way too much on tactics and techniques and all of these things, and they don't do the core work of identity shifting, becoming the person that they need to be mentally to be confident no matter what. Because a confident person remains confident no matter what happens. Yeah, they are disappointed when things don't work out, but they don't start questioning their life, their choices, their product, their service. They don't start questioning those things. So how do we become that person? How do we embody those persons? And it's through service. It's really through service in a very simple way. Again, there are strategies that you can apply to make yourself more sharp and make more impact. But the roots of your feet have to be grounded into service and delivering value. That's the basics.
And perceiving that as something valuable, because you can deliver value and you can still feel like you're not doing enough. So again, it's about perspective and the way that you phrase it in your own mind.
Absolutely.
So I would say, because you said confidence is about mindset, I would say, yes, it starts, I would say, with mindset, with the way you see yourself, with the way you train your mind to see yourself, because again, it's an effort, right? You have to train yourself to change those thoughts of I'm not good enough to I am good enough, I'm doing enough, I'm on a good path. Even though today wasn't my best day, it cannot be that every day is better than the last day. So it's okay. So it's all about that mindset. And again, it's about the skills, still improving, working on those skills, the tactics, the strategy, and consistency. I guess these three elements really make a difference, whether imposter syndrome or anything else.
Absolutely. And when I talk to my students, especially in the early process, when I start working with them, I am so interested and intrigued in their background and how it has shaped their mind. There's a very important thing you have to understand, that sometimes we think we want to change and we say we want to change, but we really don't want to change. I'm sure you've met maybe people in your life, not just coaches and consultants, who have shown this thing to you in some way or the other. And you have to think about, okay, why is that? This person is obviously miserable. This person is almost going to go out of business. They're desperately seeking help. But why are they not taking the answer? And here's where the clue lies. Sometimes we don't want to change the things that we have learned to tolerate. I don't want to tolerate a dysfunctional house with all this stuff everywhere. I'm not a neat freak by any means, but I want a clean, organized house. And since that's who I am, that's who I am embodied myself to be, a person who will not tolerate a messy house, my house will never be messy. I will always find the time to do it. But have you been to someone's house, apartment, and just stuff everywhere? There's like food stuck to the carpet under the coffee table. I'm sure they have reasons. They have a busy job or kids or dogs or whatever the situation is. There's always reasons. I'm not going to call them excuses. But they have just learned to tolerate it. They have learned to live with it. So when we learn to live with a problem, when we learn to tolerate a problem, sometimes when we know what to do, we still don't do it. So telling that person, imagine that person who's in a business and they've learned to just live paycheck to paycheck, one little bit earning here and there. Logically, it makes no sense. Why wouldn't you want to make more money? They themselves logically are like, oh yeah, I want to make more money. But I can literally have no impact on that person by just giving them tips and tricks and strategies and nothing. It's going to go in, it's going to go here, it's going to stay here. And their life is going to be same. And that's what happens with a lot of coaches, right? They have students, they're giving them all the information, but the results are not coming. And they're like, why? It's working for this person, it's not. Maybe they just have learned to tolerate that state of life. So how do we get rid of that? It's complete. I call it inner engineering, like completely changing your mindset and your wiring, re-engineering yourself to get out of there. Because again, unless the mindset is ready, unless your mind is ready, no amount of tricks, tips, anything will work. That's just the way I think. I don't know.
And to get yourself ready, because you said that even if they think they want to change, they don't actually want to change. Is it that they actually don't want to change, or they don't have the things in place to help them change?
Great question. That's a great way to end it, like you said. Everybody believes that they don't have the resources that they need to change. But look around yourself. You're holding a device that has access to every bit of information that exists in the world. Whether you want to tie a shoelace or build a rocket ship, you can find it on the internet. But then why do we spend our entire day watching cat videos? What? You have the resources available to you. We believe that we don't have the resources, that we don't have the opportunities. And for some people, it might be true. But for the majority of the people who have access to information, the basic necessities in life, we want to tell ourselves the story that I don't have the opportunities, I don't have the resources. But that's not true, because a person who really wants to change, who really wants to make an impact, will find a way to get there. At least make 1% improvement, at least make 5% improvement. I would much rather see someone try every single day and struggle and fail than someone who has just given up. There's a very famous story in Aesop's fable I read as a kid, and it had such an impact on me, even though I'm this old now, and I still remember it. And the story is about a fox that is going through the forest, and he's hungry, and he sees a grapevine, and there's this juicy, delicious grapes just hanging from the grapevine. And the fox is so hungry, the fox is like, I want these grapes. So he starts jumping. 2 attempts, 6 attempts, 8 attempts. When he can't get the grapes, at some point he says, you know what? The grapes were probably sour in the first place, and walks away. How many times does that happen to us? And trust me, I am not someone sitting on a mountain telling people, you suck, and I'm perfect. It happens to me. How many times does it happen to us that we try something a fair number of times, and then we create a narrative like that fox, saying that the grapes are just sour, and walk away from it and justify it? Now, I want to be the fox that keeps jumping. And at some point, when it's not working out, I want to find tools that could help me. I have to be creative to get to those grapes. And this is another amazing thing, which is a lot of people believe that hard work will take you there. Hard work, especially in today's hustle culture, right? It's hustle, 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 hustle. Why are you sleeping? You're sleeping 4 hours? Too much. You should be sleeping 2 hours, right? You're just making you feel like garbage because you're not hustling all the time. Hard work doesn't mean anything on its own. And I'll give you an example. I have a wall right here next to me. You see this wall, right? I can stand at this wall and push on it for 8 hours a day for 30 days straight. Really hard work. Have you ever pushed on a wall with all your strength for 8 hours? I haven't either, but I've done it for 1 minute just to try it. Just for fun. It's hard work. Your muscles are sore. Your legs are sore, right? You have done hard work. You're exhausted. This wall's going nowhere. Your hard work doesn't mean anything when you don't have the right tool. Now, you give me a sledgehammer, that's the right tool. I can work hard and take this wall down in one day. Hey, you give me a wrecking ball, I don't even have to work hard. I just take it down in one swing, right? That's where it lies. It has to be for me, to summarize my whole belief system and how I operate as a human being and how I coach my students, it's a combination of three things. Heart, number one. Your heart and your mind have to be connected, and you have to be grounded in service, but that's not enough. Strategy, number two. You need to learn the skill sets. You need to invest in yourself. You need to be completely thirsty all the time, looking for knowledge to soak in like a sponge. But that's also not good enough. Hard work. You put these three combinations together. It's a challenge to everybody listening to this podcast. The day you can find a person who's doing these three things continuously and failing, I'll change my name. It's not possible. It's just not possible. The laws of the universe just doesn't work that way. And that's how I live my life.
That is indeed an inspiring way to end our great conversation today. For everyone who would like to find out about Mark, or if you have any questions about this podcast episode, or about anything we discussed, or about anything else, you can easily find Mark on his Pen site profile. So you can type in Google Mark Talukdar, if I said it right, Pen side. You find it there. You can ask him questions over there, or you can just go to his social profiles from the page and contact him wherever it is that you want. Mark, a pleasure. Thank you so much for the value. Thank you so much for the energy. Mark, if you want to say any last words, please feel free.
Yeah, the only thing I'm going to say is the decision to change happens in a moment. And then the actual change happens later on. It's a process. But if this resonated with you, if you felt like some of the things I said made sense, and if you feel like you need to change, make that decision right now. Make that decision, make that commitment to yourself right now. And then you can figure out what that change entails. But make that decision right now. I am so happy that we got to talk. I feel so privileged to be able to share my thoughts with your audience. And I feel so good. Thank you for having me on your podcast. My website is mtcedge.com, Mark Talukdar Coaching and Education. Just thank you for everything, Maria.
Thank you, Mark. And have an awesome day. And for all the listeners, have an extraordinary day. Let's rock it.
We hope you enjoyed this episode. We'll be releasing new ones every Wednesday. Make sure to subscribe and rate us 5 stars on your favorite podcast platform to give other people the chance to discover us too.